So thank you, everyone. I'm Suzanne Morales-Vail. I'm the Director of Developmental and Adult Education in the Division of College Readiness and Success. And we have this webinar planned. The intended audience is higher education folks. Here's what we would like to talk about today. We're just going to, as always, review the main goals of the Higher Ed Strategic Plan, provide a brief overview of college readiness just to center our topics for today. And again, of course, same thing with the House Bill 2223 Corequisite Models overview. And then we'll get into talking about the TSIA 2.0 and end with some professional development resources. And then, of course, equally important, we'll allow for a very robust question and answer period at the end based on what you've heard. So just to remind everyone that 60 by 30 text is the name of our higher ed strategic plan. It has 4 major goals, and the 60 and the 30 numbers in the title of the plan represent that by 2030, 60% of Texans between the ages of 25 and 34 will have a certificate or degree. Notice these certificates or degrees can be earned anywhere. The second goal is slightly different, and that is at a snapshot in time in 2030, we will hope to have at least 550,000 students with certificate, associate, bachelor's, or master's degrees. These are specifically earned from Texas higher institutions. Marketable skills goals simply relate to the programs that students are completing in Texas will have identified marketable skills and also ways that students are able to demonstrate those marketable skills. And the 4th goal is a maintenance goal that the student debt will not exceed 60% of first-year wages. So just to remind everyone, where are we in terms of college readiness for our entering students? 58% of our first-time entering students in fall were college ready. So if you see the pie chart in the middle, that represents statewide outcomes or entry. If we look at the chart on the left, that represents 2-year colleges, and then the chart on the right represents universities. And you can see that the heaviest burden in terms of underprepared students entering higher ed is at the 2-year colleges. The dark gray area represents 58% of students who enter 2-year colleges are not college ready. And again, we know that that is most likely related to the fact that universities do have admission standards which are stricter than community colleges, which are generally open enrollment. So if we look at the next slide here, almost half of our non-college ready students from fall 2017 remained not ready after 1 year. Again, the heaviest burden again lies in the areas of math where even after 1 year, 17% of students, only 17% of students who were not ready in math had actually completed their first college level course. The data regarding reading and writing are markedly better, but still we're not where we need to be. We hope that our co-requisite models will have a big effect on these numbers. So completion rates, this is also something very important. When students come in not college ready, represented by the bluish bars, they are not going to graduate at the same rate as students who come in college ready, as represented by the red bars. And the biggest difference is surprisingly at universities, where it's almost a 20-point difference. At community colleges, it looks like it's closer to a 10-point difference, but again, not where we want to be. So what is college readiness? Just in a nutshell, it's the ability for a student to successfully complete without remediation, without mandatory remediation, a freshman level course. The TSI is the statute which requires all entering non-exempt students to be assessed by the college or university, and the TSI assessment is the state-approved testing instrument used for this purpose. As of right now, the current TSI, as you know, tests in 3 areas of reading and writing and math. And we just need to remind everyone that results from the TSI cannot be used for admissions purposes. So we know as of fall 2013, that's when we launched the TSIA, the current version. That's when the 4 previously used assessments no longer were usable: Occuplacer, THEA, Compass, and Asset, to be replaced by the current version of the TSIA. And again, 3 subject areas. And as you know, the writing does also have an essay in addition to the multiple choice component. And in a few minutes, I'll talk more details on how the TSIA2 will be different from the current version. We just want to remind everyone that the requirement for a student to engage in a pre-assessment activity is currently still in place and will still remain with the launch of the TSIA 2.0. Here are the 4 main areas that have to be addressed. And we want to remind everyone that the state has contracted with a company called Quirium. And Quirium, their pre-assessment activity, which is available free of charge to any public institution of higher ed or any school district. And of course, their pre-assessment activity has been vetted and is approved by the state. And this is a resource available. We put considerable funding into supporting this resource and making it free, helping to make it free for institutions. So we highly recommend to review this and see if this might meet the needs of your students. We know the college readiness benchmark on the left. These have been in place. We've made a modification as a result of the validity study. On the right, of course, the college readiness benchmarks are still to be determined. And again, just remember that the TSIA is computer adaptive. It includes 2 components. Both components will need to be, students will need to engage in both components if the student does not meet the college readiness benchmark after the first 20 questions. College readiness is determined by subject area. So if a student is college ready only in one area, that student is able to enroll in the college level coursework in that subject area, even if the student is not ready in the other remaining area or areas. And of course, diagnostic results should be used in placing students into developmental coursework or intervention. That's for high school complete students, or for students who are still in high school to determine whether the student may need to, should be placed in a college prep course. Of course, we want to remind everyone that statute allows the TSIA to be retaken at any time, and there is no limit to this. Of course, as a best practice, we highly, highly recommend that students engage in some sort of intervention or refresher before attempting the test again. How can a student demonstrate college readiness? These have been in place. There's no change to these indicators. However, we just want to remind everyone that when we talk about college readiness from a higher ed perspective, and you're working with your TEA counterparts, with your school district counterparts, especially for dual credit purposes, they may think, when they hear college readiness, they may think a little bit differently than we in higher ed, because of course they have the college and career military readiness indicators that are part of K-12 accountability that is not applicable for higher ed. So we just want to remind everyone, what you see on this slide here, these are the ways that the higher ed coordinating board considers as college readiness indicators. And if you look here, these are the indicators that your TEA, your school district counterparts, will be familiar with. There is overlap. You can see in highlight in yellow that there is overlap between what higher ed considers to be college ready, but there are a number of options here, especially in the career ready and military ready, that do not have application for higher ed college readiness. So getting into House Bill 2223, we have all been implementing for over a year now, so you should be very familiar with this. We just want to remind everyone that the co-requisite models required by this statute apply to high school complete students only. This bill is not for students who do not yet have a high school completion. And basically, we need to remind everyone that by next fall, 75% of students who are enrolled in developmental education at your institution have to be enrolled in a corequisite model. And remember again, corequisite models are for high school complete students only. So now we're getting towards the end of the formal part of our presentation today, and we'll talk about the TSIA 2.0. As you know, we issued a request for proposals, and the College Board, through the formal process, through the formal evaluation process, was selected as the vendor. So they are our current vendor, so that's one good thing, that there is some continuity there, and that happened in August 2019. In September 2019, we recruited both K-12 and higher ed content experts and convened a day-long test design meeting, which was the first official meeting where we gave feedback on the overall test design of the new assessment. We have also identified 5 psychometricians representing not only Texas but across the country, and they will make up the assessment task force. It's a group that meets quarterly. Their first meeting is November 15th here at the coordinating board offices. Again, this group meets quarterly, and we vet and ask them to review and provide feedback for everything related to the assessment. The next 2 items on this timeline, the item review and standard setting, are very important because we will be actively recruiting for not only K-12 but also higher ed representation that will make up these review teams, the item review and the standard setting teams. The item review process is tentatively right now scheduled for February. It's a 3-day long meeting here in Austin, here at the coordinating board offices. The standard setting then is a 4-day meeting, and that will be held again here at the coordinating board offices in April. Again, we'll be sending out recruitment letters to your presidents and chief academic officers. So if you are interested in serving on either of these teams, please make sure that your administration knows that you are interested and provide them with your contact information so that once those letters are released, they know who to go to in terms of recommending and nominating folks from their institutions. Just a quick comment about the people who will be the final selection for both of these groups. We just want to remind everyone that we not only want to have geographical representation across the state, but also race, ethnicity, as much as possible, to have a diverse group who will be participating. The new college readiness standards will be presented to the board at their April meeting, and upon approval, we then will release those publicly. And remember, those recommended standards will be based on the recommendations from both the item review and standard setting processes. We anticipate beta testing in June. That'll be a month where any stakeholder will be able to go in and test the assessment to see how it works, to see how the various functionalities, and I'll talk about those in a minute, work, and so that everyone has a good idea of what this test is like, and so that they can be a little bit more informed, and also, of course, share that information with students. The launch date is going to be in August, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. So here are some anticipated enhancements. First and foremost, all of the items will be aligned to revised standards. All of those listed under the bullet here, the Texas College and Career Readiness Standards, the TEKS, the Adult Education and Literacy 2.0 standards, and even the National Reporting System functioning level descriptors all have been revised and updated since the original launch of the TSIA. So all of the items will be aligned to the revised standards. Reading and writing will be integrated. So there will only be 2 tests, Currently, as you know, we have 3. That will be reduced to 2, and that will be math and ELAR. English Language Arts Reading will be the name of the integrated reading and writing test. But as we currently have the essay component will also still be required, and it will be part of the ELAR score. Right now we have 2 diagnostics, and that will be reduced to 1 diagnostic, and that 1 diagnostic will simply be called TSIA2 diagnostic, and it will still also produce a level 1 to 6 based on the NRS educational functioning level descriptors. Transportability of test results will be improved. There will be a student portal, and students at the time when they complete testing will be immediately be able to identify 3 institutions in Texas to send their test results to immediately. That'll be free of charge. And then also students will be able to log into their portal after they have tested, and then again send out an unlimited number to an unlimited number of institutions free of charge their test results. So students will have control over who gets the test results. Test administrators, you still will have the current ability, as you currently do, you will have the ability to look up students' scores and once they have tested. So this is just an additional way that students have a little bit more agency over who gets their test results. But rest assured, current test administrators, the process of accessing test results for students who have tested at either at your institution or have tested elsewhere, that will still remain. We are bumping up and really improving test administrator training and proctor training, and training will be mandatory. And data matching, and this is especially for our TEA counterparts. As I mentioned earlier, the TSIA and the TSIA2 have become fairly prominent in high school accountability ratings and the accountability system. And so we want to help our TEA counterparts with making sure that data matching has improved for that purpose. Also, we're really excited that for students who take the assessment but don't meet the college readiness benchmark and have completed the diagnostic, a locator code will be produced for every student, and they will be able to log into a program offered by the College Board. It's called Perspectives. More detail will be forthcoming, but this will be a free, customized online learning support for any student not meeting the college readiness benchmark. Those of you who might be familiar with the SAT and Khan Academy relationship and how they provide videos and other resources for students who don't meet certain benchmarks on the SAT, this is going to be a very similar type of product, and the key word is that it is free. The effective date of the TSIA 2.0 here will be, we will have one effective date, one launch date, and that will be August 31st, 2020. That will be both for K-12 and higher education test administration. So we understand that probably 98% or 99% of your students in fall 2020 will be placed using the current assessment, but we also want to announce that the TSIA test results, both the current version and the 2.0 version, will remain valid for 5 years from date of testing. So let me repeat that. Students will still be, who are currently testing on the current version of the TSIA, they will be able to use those test results 5 years from date of testing. And we just want to remind everyone that for students who are retesting, test results from the current version and the 2.0 version will not be able to be mixed. And currently, as you're aware, the scale for the TSIA is 310 to 390. That will change for the TSIA2. We don't know yet what it will be, but let's say hypothetically it will be 210 to 290, or it will be a different scale so that anyone can easily be able to determine which test result they're looking at. As I mentioned, improving transportability of test results for students. In the student portal, students will be able to send up their test results to 3 institutions. And later on, if they want to come back in and log into their portal, they will be able to send an unlimited number of requests for their test results to institutions, and all of these options for sending results will be free to students. Calculators. We want to remind everyone that this option remains available for the 2.0 version. There are 3 types of calculators: the basic 4 function, the square root, and the graphing calculator. One thing that we want to reiterate is that this is and will remain in the 2.0 version a computer adaptive test, so that while every student, when they begin the test, will start with a similar level of difficulty type of question, but every student will not get the same question. And as the student goes through the test, the type of question the student will get and the level of difficulty will depend on the student's previous answer to the previous question. Some math questions, especially on the lower level, may not have any option for a calculator because the construct being tested will not be valid or reliable if a calculator is made available. However, most of the questions do have at least the availability of the 4-function calculator, if not also the square root or graphing calculator. So again, we want to remind everyone that even though this option is available, not every question, not every math question may have one or more of those calculators, and that depends on the construct being tested. As I mentioned earlier, the free customized online learning support called Perspectives, available to any student who does not meet the college readiness benchmark, and we highly recommend this to be used for or in conjunction, to be considered to be used in conjunction with the high school college prep course, and also TSIA or college readiness classes and workshops. I think this will be a very useful tool for those purposes. Data matching, as I mentioned earlier, we're working with TEA to require certain numbers so that we can help them improve their data matching for accountability purposes. More details will be coming with regard to that. And accommodations. So when students test for dual credit purposes, we want to remind everyone that any student with an IEP or with a documented disability, that student must work with the Disability Support Services Office at the institution of higher ed to determine which accommodations are appropriate. It is based on the institutions, on the higher ed policies, written policies and guidelines, and we want to make sure that for those purposes that the institution is involved in terms of determining the appropriate accommodations. As I mentioned earlier, we are working with College Board to beef up the training. So there is an initial certification that is mandatory if you are a TSIA test administrator, and there will be annual certification mandatory updates that will be required both for test administrators and for test proctors. I do want to remind everyone, however, when we switch in August, as of August 31st, 2020, at 12:01 a.m., the current version of the TSIA will no longer be available, and it will be replaced by the 2.0 version. However, for training purposes, for proctor training purposes, you will not at that point need to retrain. Only when your annual training time has come up, then that's the point where you will need to retrain at that point. I just want to remind everyone of the topics that are covered. So we talk about account-related permissions and logins, pre-registration and voucher systems, and how to get access to the assessment, test administration, proctoring, and security requirements. We are emphasizing 2 new security requirements: wearables, such as iPhone watches and things like that, are not allowed during testing, as of course also any phones or any devices are not allowed to be brought in during testing or used during testing. Additional topics include reports, accessing reports, and also creating customized reports. And we will have some more specific information on how to address accommodations and guidelines for accommodations. Here is a tentative training schedule, and notice we have options for every region in the state of Texas. I say tentative because some of these dates we are still actually trying to confirm meeting rooms. So once that is confirmed, we will then release the schedule and along with that, registration information. All of these, while some of the training will maybe more designed from a K-12 or a higher ed perspective, all of these are open to anyone who requests or would like to be involved in the training. Additional training opportunities besides the in-person live include webinars with live demos, and those are always recorded and made available. 1-hour sessions that cover the topics listed here. Also pre-recorded individual topic sessions also made available through the platform, and train the trainer materials. So this brings us to the end of the formal part of the presentation. Our contact information is here. I also want to, in addition to my colleague Keelan Morgan, who works very closely with developmental education grants and grantees, we also have our colleagues from Strategic Planning and Funding, Dr. Melissa Humphreys and Dr. Yuji Kim, who are available to answer any questions. Their contact information is here. And again, we invite you, do not ever feel like you need to hesitate, or you can just contact us directly for any questions you may have. So at this point, let's move into a question and answer period.
All right, Suzanne. So there were a number of questions that came through. I was trying to keep up and responding via chat, but one I want to address, we have one of our ISDs joining, and it said that on our, I think maybe the clip that I had on the graphic, that Quirium said that you have to pay for it. Rest assured that the coordinating board actually pays the current contract for the PAA, so you can subscribe to that at no charge. On their website, there's a Texas PAA tab, or in where you can email them for more information. And we went back to the slides to where the link is there as well. And I've made the slide deck available for download in the context of this session as well. So it is free. If you have any questions or concerns or have any trouble with that, feel free to reach out to me directly.